But I think he has all the tools to go in there and separate himself. So it's gonna be fun to see, because you realistically have 4 guys that could all separate themselves and be the guy. And then again, at the same time, you got to understand that yes, there is a starter, but the starter can't play every snap and he can't carry it, because in today's college football, just the days of guys carrying it 30 times and lasting the whole season, it's just not realistic.
Would you rather have one guy that you say, okay, he's the guy, such as you had with Andre and CJ and those guys? Would you just want to have that one guy? Or would you rather you get this collective group of guys that can all do great things, got a chance to be good, as you go into a fall camp? Which situation would you rather have?
I would like to have a collective group of guys that can all do it. Because if you look at Andre, when we had Andre, we still probably played him too much. Just because of his physical stature and what he was capable of. And then you saw it towards the end of the season. He'd always get nicked up. And then you always have those guys that would come in and do a good job, but they just didn't have as many reps because you had that one guy taking every rep. So I would like to have, quote unquote, a stable. And if you look at the standard for running backs, you look at Alabama, and that's what Alabama had. Yes, there's been a marquee guy. Mark Ingram was the marquee guy, but then there was Trent Richardson, who was right behind him, which made Mark Ingram better. And then you got, when Ingram left, and you had Richardson, then you got Yeldon, then you got Drake, you got all these other guys. So I would like to have a group of guys, but then also still have that one guy that okay, is going to be the starter, that in all the situations when it's crunch time, that's the guy I want in there.
Did you leave spring thinking that there's a guy that's maybe under the radar, that has that breakout potential?
Well, going back to Wayne Gallman, I think, unfortunate for Wayne, he was caught up in the controversy with the other guys at Grayson, and everyone was thinking, well, Wayne was the guy that was part of the package, and Wayne was a standalone guy from the beginning. He was a guy that I had in camp, and then I went and watched him play, and just the physical nature. I knew that he would take some time to develop just because of the style of offense, and he played so much defense that he didn't get as many reps at back. So Wayne, I knew that he was going to be special, but I didn't know, truly what we had in Wayne Gallman. And he's still a work in progress. He still has a ways to go. But he was the guy that kind of jumped out there. And then, I was hoping that CJ was going to be the guy that really had a big spring, but he was hampered, I think, a week before we started, or a couple of days before we started spring ball. He broke a bone in his hand, so he was limited, and then he came back later in spring. But I'd say, to answer your question, Wayne Gallman's probably that guy.
How about Gallman's weight? Where's he? I know y'all want to get him bigger.
Yeah, Wayne's right around 200. He'll fluctuate between 200 and 205. And I don't see him being a guy that's going to have as much of a challenge to keep the weight like Zach. Because he's not cut quite as tight as Zach. It's just a matter of time and just letting his body, adjust to the weightlifting and then getting him on a proper eating plan. But he's around between 200 and 205, and he says he wants to be about 210 when he reports.
Would you trust Wayne Gallman enough to where, if he wins the job in camp, he gets that first carry against Georgia?
Whew, that's a tough question. But if he proves throughout the course of camp that he's the guy and he's deserving of being a starter, then he's going to have my complete trust. And whoever walks out there against Georgia is going to be a guy that I trust in that situation.
Would you feel like coming out of camp, maybe it wasn't where he was a clear-cut number one, but you maybe had a 1 and a 1A and a 1AA with those guys?
Right. And that very well may be the case.
Yeah.
And they understand that, but then they also know that they're all competing to be, that guy. So what you would hope that, yes, one of them will separate. But if it's 1A, however it works out, that's how we're going to go.
The coaches typically, all things being equal, the guy with the experience, if things are equal, that's typically the guy that gets that initial nod.
Typically, that's been a philosophy of Coach Sweeney, and being that I played under Coach Sweeney, that's kind of the philosophy that I've adopted. So yes, if it comes down to everything's even, then you'll probably go with the guy that's got a little bit more experience, a little bit more seniority.
How do you coach short yardage situations like 3rd and 2, 4th and 2? Because Taj always handled that so well in his time here. That might not be Cole's thing. That might have to go to a DJ, CJ,
Right.
Something like that.
Right. Well, just in general, teaching the body mechanics, body positioning, the fundamentals of running the football. You don't have to change on 3rd and 2 in terms of body positioning, ball leverage, things of that nature. The big thing is just in our offense, we play so fast, is identifying that it is a short yardage situation, and then they understand within every run scheme what is my adjustment on short yardage. So when it's a zone, when we're running